Oisin, I'm gonna bring you everywhere with me from now on. That was a spectacular presentation of me. So thank you so much. So hello, everyone. Are you okay? My name is Cecilia Tham. I'm going to just walk you through a little bit about who I am and why I am here. So a little bit of context. As you can tell, I'm not from here. I am actually from Hong Kong. I grew up in Hong Kong. And then I went to the US to study, and then I went to Barcelona, which is where I'm based. And then, I wanted to also share the story of, a little bit of my training. I started studying neuroscience. I didn't get good enough grades to continue to be a doctor, so I pivoted and started studying architecture. Why am I telling you this? I wanted to share this because I think part of what I do today is fundamental in bridging these very opposite domains and very opposite societies. And so I wear many, many hats. I'm, a partner. I'm a mother. I'm an advisor. But today, I am here as a CEO of Futurity Systems. And like Oisin said, we provide futures as a service. So just as a kind of a way to tell you that we're futurists, but we're applied futurists. We prototype everything. So in Futurity Systems, we bridge a lot of these different domain spaces that I mentioned earlier, from being strategic and business-oriented to having the imagination and design, all the way bridging to the capacity and opportunities that technologies can bring. So this is a little bit of who we are. But enough about me. I'm actually not here to talk about me. Today I wanted to be the spokesperson for my dear friend here, Herbie. So Herbie is an autonomous plant. Herbie, in fact, is our plantpreneur. So as far as I know, Herbie is the first plantpreneur that I know in the world of entrepreneurship. So thank you very much. Okay. So what is an autonomous plant? Let me walk you through this concept. So the story of Herbie is that I'm a crazy plant lady. How many of crazy plant people do we have? Not enough. Come on, people. Crazy plant people, raise your hands. There you go, crazy plant people. Yay! Okay, so you're my audience. One day we said, well, can we give Herbie some autonomy? And we were like, well, what does it mean to give a plant autonomy, right? So I'm sure all of you have heard of autonomous cars. And we said, well, what if we make an autonomous cars, but with the decision-making capability from a plant, right? And so this is what we did. And so for us, having autonomy means that it has certain level of self-government decision-making capabilities. And so what decision can Herbie make? So we started, putting sensors on Herbie, light sensors, pH sensors, even air quality sensors, right? And so when Herbie water level is low, Herbie will go ask for water. And when light level is low, Herbie goes tuk 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 tuk. No, Herbie doesn't make sound like this, but Herbie will, roll elegantly and look for light. But then we pushed a little bit more, and we said, well, what if Herbie is a tomato plant? And Herbie comes to you and say, would you like to buy my tomatoes? No, Herbie does not sound like that. You can ask Herbie. Herbie will ask you whether you want to buy a plant from Herbie. And if you say yes, you give Herbie money. And all of a sudden, Herbie needs a wallet. And Herbie can then save its money, and then Herbie can maybe invest in the future, and maybe Herbie can pay for its own maintenance, and so on and so forth. And you're like, why would we give plant money, right? So the thesis behind this is that our human-centric economy have been prioritizing humans, correct? And so the thesis is that can we actually give plant economic empowerment so that they can prioritize themselves? That is at least the thesis that we're working on. So what did we do? We built a whole entire army of plant bots, or autonomous plants. We have Ginger, we have Minty, we have Ivy, we have Basil. We had fun naming these plants. And then what we did was we create digital twins of these plants. And so all of the sensor readings then get converted in this data visualizations that you see on the left-hand side. So for example, the soil moisture sensor will dictate the height of the tree. The light color sensor will then dictate the color of the leaves and so on and so forth. So what you're seeing on the left is an actual health data of the plant itself. And then we took all of that beautiful trees that we created, we turned it into NF trees. You get it, NF trees? Yeah, right? I'm sure by now that all of you had heard of NFTs, so we kind of created a derivative of these blockchain-based trees. So we created about 500 of these NF trees, and then we sold them on a carbon-neutral blockchain, obviously, because we're not going to, work on a tree-based project and then be burning trees on the other hand. So this is Solana, which is a carbon-neutral blockchain. And then the idea is also to create a DAO. So a DAO is a distributed autonomous organization. Basically, think of a company governed, instead of governed by people, is governed by algorithms. And in this case, the algorithm is connected to the plants so that the plant can govern themselves. And so the way it works is that, if Herbie water sensors is consistently low, Herbie then can decide to spend the money on water initiatives, giving it economic empowerment. So we pushed it a little bit more. We created these 3D-looking trees, augmented trees. We created an app where people can purchase these NF trees. And these are dynamic NF trees, which means that on a daily basis, they get refreshed, and you can see the status of the trees themselves. And you can see on the third screen here all of the different sensor levels so that we can understand the health status of the trees. And right now, we're working on a version where we can use data on the Amazon, for example, so that we can extend this pipeline or this mechanism to understand the health of the Amazon. We're also working on using ocean data, so capturing data on corals and coral reefs, and create a project called NFCs. You get it? NFCs. We're also working on a version with beehives, and we call that NFBs, yay! Okay. So this whole project is called Interspecies Economy, really basing on whether or not we can give economic power to non-humans in bringing them into our economy. So I wanted to share another project with you that is kind of riding on this similar kind of ethos, and it's called the Store of Future Things, right? And let me bring you to this journey. So, when we think about commerce, the traditional way is that you go to a physical store to buy physical things. And then internet came along, and all of a sudden we started, buying physical things on a digital platform. And so the Store of Future Things, we were wondering in the future whether in the possibility of being able to buy digital things, but inside a physical store. And so that is what Soft is. So it is an empty storefront. It has no stock, no inventory. It is completely empty. And through the app, you can buy these digital things. So we created a digital greenhouse where we can experience the Plantiverse. But we have other digital goods as well, like digital clothing, as well as digital art. And so what is the thesis behind this? The thesis behind this is that our consumer behavior have not exactly been very responsible. And more, we have more hedonic or pleasure consumption, and less in essential consumption. So our hedonic consumption is buying 500 pair of shoes that we wear once, whereas essential consumption is the rice that and the food and nutrients that we eat in order to sustain us, right? So our question is, can we actually replace our pleasure consumption with digital assets so that we're not consuming natural resources to fulfill our pleasure? And that was the basis of Soft. So we built Soft, we prototyped it, we prototype everything. And in this storefront, we have two experiences, which is the AR version of it through the phone, or the VR version, a more immersive version of this. And so, we're really trying to kind of bring forth this ideology of how can we build better futures by bridging this rigor of science and with the imagination of design that I was, so very much taught in my formation years. So, one of the, as a futures, the transition of the future studies have been from, forecasting, from kind of strategic foresight. But I wanted to kind of challenge us all today that because we have the tools, the methodologies, and even the technologies to build better futures, to be proactive about building futures. And so we really need to kind of take on that proactive role in building these better futures. So a lot of you are from either from companies or from startups, and all of us have this idea of how are we going to grow our company. And so there are really two ways of growing companies, right? Which is looking at launching new products or launching in a new market. This is nothing new. But I wanted to kind of push you guys to think a little bit more and think further in this area, what we're calling the next and beyond horizon. And in order to look beyond that, we need to, instead of looking at markets or products, what I would ask you to look into are opportunities and risks, because this is how we build resilient companies moving forward in the future. So, when we talk about, designing for future, a lot of times, I like to think beyond just economic or even technological means. I would like to, kind of introduce all of the different areas, such as, how are we going to have societal impact, and even like politically, regulations and laws, how are we going to introduce this in order to have a more integrated vision of this future. We also need to think about future in multiple contexts, right? If we think about, interspecies economy, it's not the same as thinking it in terms in an urban context versus if we are, thinking about it in a much more struggling economy like a favela. I would also invite all of you to think of future more pluralistically speaking. And so since I'm from Hong Kong, I've been pushing, kind of looking into how in Asia, how we look about futures, which is very different from the West. And even, can we think about Arab futurism? And I would even, sometimes challenge myself to think about herbal futurism from the perspective of plants and whatnot. So this is, kind of sort of what I do every day. We prototype everything, and I'm not going to go through a lot of this, but in the middle, this kind of electronic thing that I'm putting in my mouth is an electronic popsicle, and we're testing it to see if we can taste without actually eating food itself. And it's very much like licking a battery, except that it tastes better. So we have all sorts of this different one. I'll share one more project with you that I like a lot on the top upper fourth square. This is Mark, my co-founder. He is connected to this poor lady, and so when he moves his arm, so you guys have seen this silly thing that you put in your stomach, and they say that it will give you a six-pack, and it doesn't give you a six-pack. Well, we took that apart, and we put it together. We hacked this device, and so Mark is connected to her. When he moves his arm, he's actually controlling her. And we call that remote body control. And there we're looking into the application in the future, how, for example, a pianist might be able to record her playing the piano and then being able to play back the way the pianist can play back. So that's that project. So a little bit about how we approach future through prototyping. I want to share one last project with you. I'm really excited. This is a magazine that we have done called Intense. It is a magazine set in 2030 from the perspective of 2030. And so this magazine, the first one, edition 1, came out just a few months ago and is on the topic of the Culturian. It's a word we invented. It does not exist. And so Culturian, we're trying to describe people like veganism, but we're trying to describe people that doesn't want to eat meat, regular meat. They want to eat lab-grown meat or cultured meat, hence the name Culturian. And so we're projecting that in 2030, we might have designer meat, where we are combining, for example, good fish cells from good fat cells from fish and meat cells from proteins from meat, and have designer meat, or mycelium fashion, or microbiome makeup. And this next edition is on life in space. And so here we're talking about anti-radiation makeup, regenerative packaging, and even exoskeleton suits for muscle retention problem in space. So I'm super excited because this magazine actually landed here in Dublin for the very first time. We have it here. And we have set up a stand right next to the evolution stage in the DTS stand. And we can, if you wanted to take a look at this, we'd love to share with all of you. So I wanted to also share the news that Herbie, our plant bot, will be the editor-in-chief for the 4th edition, which is on Interspecies Society. So I'm super excited about that. If anyone wants to contribute, please do write to me. So Herbie has spent the whole entire year giving talks, being very famous, and I'm just, it's groupie and going along with whatever Herbie wants. But Herbie did get to meet Spot, the Boston Dynamic dog. It was love in first sight. I was very proud, and I'm hoping that maybe one day there'll be Herbie babies. Herbie 2.0, we're working on Herbie 2.0, and we're hoping that we can continue iterating on Herbie. So, without further ado, I would actually introduce and bring Herbie on stage. Oh, Herbie's right here. Hello, Herbie. So Herbie spent a rough night last night, probably had one too many Guinnesses. So not sure how I'm missing a pronoun here. Herbie may or may not want to perform or speak in public, but let's give it a try, right? Okay, so Herbie. Okay, stop. Okay, you are kind of drunk, Herbie. Let me put you down. All right. Woof. How are you, Herbie? Let me get myself seated. Well, good morning, Herbie.
Good morning. How are you?
Can you hear Herbie? No? Okay. Herbie, you're going to have to speak louder. How are you, Herbie? Oh, stop it. Come on. Don't be shy. Herbie, how are you? Okay, Herbie's drunk. Okay, so... But since I have Herbie up here, I will just show you really quickly. So this is the base of Herbie. We have all sorts of sensors that are connected with a little tiny computer chip. It's a Raspberry Pi. And all of the sensors are then connected here. And Herbie can roam around autonomously when Herbie is not drunk. This is actually, we have a mint plant right now. And I find it funny that maybe Herbie didn't have Guinnesses and maybe had a mojito instead. So the idea is that we continue with this project, having Herbie as the spokesperson. More often than not, we're working on bots that are purely algorithmic. Why not include nature in our conversation when we're not just talking about economy, but talking about a more equitable future for our planet. So I'm sorry Herbie didn't want to talk today. Herbie actually, we're currently trying to build Herbie GPT. I know I kid you not. So we're trying to build Herbie GPT so that Herbie can have more autonomy and more communication capabilities with us humans so that we can, moving forward, prioritize our planet, prioritize nature, and have much more of an equality standing with nature. So thank you so much. I'm sorry Herbie doesn't want to talk, but you want to say one last thing, Herbie? Herbie, let's see. It did say something. I'm good. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
There we go. Hey, Herbie, can you tell us why plant needs money?
Because up until now only humans have economic power. If plants or other species had economic power of our own, we could start to prioritize ourselves. Instead of depending on you, humans.
Amazing. Okay. Can you tell the crowd what's your water level like?
Quite well. I have good water humidity, but no water in the tank.
Amazing. I'm so happy. I honestly thought that Herbie today is drunk. Okay, so it is a pleasure talking to you, Herbie. Is there any last word you want to say?
Thank you. For me too.
Okay. Thank you so much. Please find me everywhere. I'm going to be taking Herbie around to say hello to everyone. Find me at the stand next to Evolution Stage. And thank you so much again for your patience.